Durham Ellis learned tobacco growing from his father on the same farm. His grandfather was a planter before that. Now he is the oldest of the family, nearly 80, and has 7 grown sons with families of their own who work the place with him. Besides being first-rate tobacco planters, they're all real farmers, too. Sometimes the Ellis women boast that they do more work than the men, even though it is a different kind of work. And in a pinch, the whole family could get by without ever going off the farm. Of course, some things they have to buy. But they're like most tobacco families. They're thrifty. And then there's something they like better about things raised on the farm. To this day, they still know how to make their own soap. Betty Ellis usually does that. She seems to have more knack for it than anybody else. All the women folk help with the preserves. It takes lots of planning to feed 8 hungry men 3 times a day all through the year. The Ellis women are mighty proud of their preserves, and they're apt to put a few jars aside just to show off to visitors. But first and foremost job of the Ellis family is growing tobacco. And that takes not only planning, but plenty of experience and skill. The first thing they have to do is there won't be time to cut wood later on. And if a tobacco farmer grows Southern Bright, one thing he has to have is wood. First for the seed bed, and then for curing in the fall. Oak and pine are mostly used for curing the kind of leaf that grows in Durham County. On some places, nearly half the farm is in wood. Of course, lots of wood is always needed for the kitchen, and in winter for the stoves and fireplaces. Just before the frost is out of the ground is the time a tobacco farmer starts his seed bed. And that's the thing he needs his wood for, because after he breaks the ground, it has got to be burned over to kill the weeds and sterilize the soil. And besides, wood ash helps the seeds to grow. To anyone who doesn't know, it's hard to understand how many tobacco plants can be started in one little seed bed. But when he sees how small the seeds are, it begins to make more sense. A tablespoonful will grow seedlings enough to cover 6 or 7 acres when they're transplanted to the fields. So they won't come up in bunches and crowd each other out. The seeds are mixed with soil before they're sown. This time of year, the seed bed's the most important plot of land that any farmer has, and he takes all kinds of pains with it. One thing about tobacco, it takes pampering from the day the seeds are in the ground. To protect it from cold night air and frost, it has to be kept covered while it's young. Most farmers plant 2 or 3 seed beds in the spring, just to be sure to have plenty of healthy plants. The first week in March is the time to start plowing in Durham County. There's more land on the place now than when Durham Ellis and his father farmed it all alone. 261 acres. A lot as tobacco farms go, and all paid for, too. By apple blossom time, the year's work is pretty well underway. Tobacco farmers like the early springtime the best of all the seasons. The weather's almost always fine then, and the real hard work hasn't yet begun. Durham Ellis says tobacco growing's changed a lot in his time. The U.S. Department of Agriculture and the state agricultural colleges that make a study of tobacco are bound to find out things that farmers never knew before. Take fertilizer, for instance. Tobacco takes more out of the soil than almost any other crop. And to grow good tobacco, the soil has to be built up again every year, refortified with the right kind of minerals. The Ellises put nearly 800 pounds of fertilizer on every acre they plant. It costs them $32 a ton, but they know from long experience that it's a good investment. It's along about the first week in May that the Ellis family has its first real hard day's work. That's transplanting day. when all the Ellises get up way before dawn. Most people don't realize how much work goes on in a season of tobacco farming. They say tobacco just can't have too much care, and long hours on the job is the only sure way to raise a first-rate crop. Farmers like the Ellises know that hard work in the springtime pays good dividends at auction time in the fall, so no one minds getting up a little earlier than usual when they have to. One reason for starting work so early is to take the seedlings out before the sun gets too hot. Tobacco plants are delicate when they're small. When it's ready to transplant, a seedling will come about 6 inches high, only 3 or 4 little leaves, and hardly bigger than a radish plant. It's surprising how tall they'll get by August. Transplanting is a ticklish job. It doesn't do to put the plants too close together so they choke each other out, or too far apart and waste a lot of ground. And there's no time for measuring. A man just has to have an eye for it. It has to be done in a hurry, too, so that the seedlings don't wilt and die. At that, the plants look pretty wilted the first day they're growing. In August, the plants are nearly 5 feet high, and there's nothing that gives a tobacco farmer more real pleasure than to see a field of big, healthy tobacco plants. They're his living, and he knows what care and hard work it's taken to make them look that way. About this time of year is a busy time for tobacco buyers, too. Experienced buyers know that the one sure way of getting the choice leaf at the fall auction is to go out in the summer and look over the crops firsthand. Maryland tobacco and burley from Kentucky, Tennessee, and as far west as Ohio and Missouri, and the southern bright that grows in Virginia and the Carolinas, and as far south as Georgia and Florida. They almost always catch the Ellis boys just about at topping time, when they're breaking off the tops to keep the plants from going to seed. And the others, they've been doing business together at auctions as long as any of them can remember. Just about this same time is when the Ellis family has its yearly barbecue. The whole family has worked on it for days, fixing up the roasting pits, making hot stuff, the pepper sauce for seasoning, and the favorite dish always is Brunswick stew. Chicken all mixed up with tomatoes, sweet corn, and fresh butter beans. Of course, at every barbecue in tobacco land, pork is the big dish on the bill of fare. And the Ellises seem to have a way of fixing it that makes it extra good. But the family says it wouldn't seem like an Ellis barbecue without them. For years, the Ellis barbecue has been the biggest summertime affair in almost all Durham County. Everyone eats too much, but they all have a lot of fun, even though they know the crops are almost ready to harvest and cure, and that there are long, hard weeks of work ahead. From about the 1st of August to the 15th of September, every family in the tobacco country is busy night and day. Unlike most crops, tobacco isn't ripe for harvesting all at the same time. Knowing just when each leaf is ready for picking and fit for curing is one of the great secrets of raising good tobacco. Once harvesting begins, it goes right on until the whole crop is in. And during all these weeks, every member of the family has some job to do, helping in one way or another to make tobacco. Even with all the hands that can be mustered, it's long and tiring work, but it's work they all like to do. The crop is the Ellis family's bread and butter, and it's the result of a common family effort. And a really fine tobacco crop means that everyone has done his share of work all year round. Curing tobacco is what takes the most experience and where the most risk comes in. An average curing barn holds about 1,000 pounds of leaf. And the Ellises, with all their acreage, find they need about 22 curing barns to handle the crop. With auction time getting nearer, a farmer begins thinking about prices, how crops are in other parts of the tobacco country, whether buying will open up for Europe and other foreign countries, all the other things that may affect the tobacco market. Farmers like the Ellises, though, never worry very much about what price their leaf will bring. In tobacco land, the saying is that if a man takes care of his tobacco will take care of him. Southern bright tobacco, the kind the Ellis family grows, is cured with heat. Flue cured, they call it. The ovens in the curing barns are connected with sheet iron flues, which carry heat to every corner of the barn. Once the fires are lighted, it's a long time before anyone in the family gets back to regular hours. It takes nearly 4 full days and nights to cure a single barn full of tobacco. And to keep all the fires going all day and all night is a great big job. The inside temperature has got to be just right every minute, which means someone always has to be on watch. And in spite of all the crops the Ellis boys have raised, their father still likes to keep an eye on everything that goes on at curing time. A tobacco farmer knows when his leaf is cured by its color and the feel. And by the time the crop is cured and the fires die out, the whole family is ready for a few days off. When everybody's had a rest, they all get busy again, this time sorting the cured leaf and grading it according to quality. Naturally, all tobacco leaf isn't the same. Even leaves from the same plant are different in size, in color, and texture. Of course, good weather and good luck help to make a good crop. But experience and all year-round hard work is what makes a high percentage of real grade A tobacco. The Ellis family are proud of their reputation as growers of the very best tobacco. And year after year, they take first prizes at the county fair. The judges say that no finer leaf is grown anywhere. Hundreds of hogsheads of tobacco are moved onto the production line, each with its pedigree, showing clearly the year of harvest and the locality where the tobacco was grown. For this leaf has come not only from the land of Durham Ellis, but from hundreds of farms spread all over tobacco land. Each leaf brings with it the characteristic flavor and texture of the district in which it grew. Known as making strip, the tobacco passes through a steam-filled conditioning chamber to restore to the leaves the proper amount of moisture, all in tobacco. Dropping automatically to the floor below, the leaf is now ready for another important process, stemming. Millions of leaves pass through the stemmery every hour. Leaf by leaf, as the farmer harvests his crop, the machines strip the endless procession of tobacco. Ahead of this leaf is one more conditioning, in which moisture content is checked before it is sent away for another and final period of aging. For in addition to its first years of aging, more in hogsheads before it is ready for final blending, because it gives to the stripped tobacco an extra degree of mildness and flavor. Another important comes from the eastern shores of Europe's Mediterranean Sea. Each year, millions of... The story goes that it was introduced by British Army officers, Crimean War. Put in bonded warehouses under the supervision of the U.S. Customs Service. And on each pound it withdraws from bonds, the federal treasury. Because the Turkish leaf is smaller and more delicate than domestic tobacco, it must be conditioned and handled with special care. More than a dozen types of fine Turkish tobaccos, each with a good characteristic all its own, are blended into the exact requirements. Next, tobacco leaves by a battery of high-speed rotary cutting machines. Pressed solidly together, the blended tobacco leaf meets spinning blades revolving at a speed of 4,500 times a minute. And when it emerges, tobacco grown in Turkey and tobacco grown by Durham, Ellis, and thousands of other farmers in Tobacco Land, USA, meet in one single, mild and fragrant blend. But to the Ellises and to other folk in Tobacco Land, the end of the tobacco growing season is a time for relaxation, and they all look forward to it as the nicest time of the year. When the children's friends from college get back for the holidays, they drop in to visit as often as they can. It's about the only time of the year when they can all get together, and it's pleasure time at home. It's the time for football, too, when everyone throughout the whole country is looking forward to some of the season's biggest games, like the annual Duke, North Carolina game. Almost every family in Tobacco Land has a youngster of college age, and they're pretty evenly divided in their allegiance to one college or another. And before every big game, there is always a midnight rally. No social functions in all Tobacco Land are more important to the young people than the college dances the night before a football game. Every year, 50,000 people from every part of the U.S. gather for Tobacco Land's Game of Games.